Alright, so I'm trying to finally get around to showcasing the Wingweaver Battle Gear complete set. I put it off because there were supposed to be some pending bug fixes and potentially a change to the pet. The pet may have been considered, maybe it'll be changed in the future to work more like Communicant's weapon, where it'll sort of do a check on your MP bar and SP bar in order to I guess double up on the other bar if you're above 80% full or whatever. But that's probably going to be a little better than how it is. I think the bug fix that I was waiting on, and maybe it's there, if it is, it's not really that much noticeable, but basically MP conversions get a 1.5 times multiplier and SP gets a 1.125 times multiplier. But all in all, I just decided to go ahead and do this. I wanted to kind of talk about the equipment's strengths and weaknesses. The set itself, it caters towards warriors. For that reason, I think it loses points. If it was more of a universal appeal, I think it might be better. Like if the barrier system gave the same barrier regardless of what build you were doing, I think I would like it better, to be honest with you. I don't like to play warrior builds, so just as a matter of personal preference, I think it loses points for that and that. But overall, I'll kind of go through everything. But so obviously you have the mount and dismount mode on the armor. The mount up mode, as you'll notice here, is fully defensive. So that's the odd part, is I guess they'll eventually implement warrior lean, so maybe the full defensive mode will be okay once they do that. I still think monsters don't threaten players enough, and I still think this mode will be unused mostly. But basically, the invigorating winds will give you a permanent 12.5% heal resistance the first time, and then if you do the second one, it'll give a second line of 12.5% heal resistance, but you have to remain in the full set to keep it. So as you can see in the box there, it's a pretty high SP cost, but it does get a reduced SP cost if you have the barrier. I do like the mechanic of changing costs based on conditions. I think that idea should be implemented in other parts of the game. But basically, I think most people feel like just going with the full offensive mode, which is the mode that will actually build barrier, is the best mode. This misc also gives barrier, pays SP, and then the shield is quick cast heal once per turn, and I guess it's got like a status cleanse effect if you have one. The pet is the worst part. Whenever you have, the pet's only worth 40% melee, as everybody knows, and then what you do is you split that into an MP heal and an SP heal, and then you actually split that again to make it 2 turns. You're basically, what is that, 10% melee per resource? That's so small. It's just bad design. The other mode it has is like extra damage. I don't use pets for extra damage or damage at all. I always use whatever status it has. So damage mode is, for me, kind of irrelevant. I will never use, even pets that have like plus 100%, I don't use them for that. I just don't. So you have 6.25% heal resist listed twice. One comes from the shield and one comes from the misc. So there's a new standard where you get basically half the potency or half the feature if the feature itself is helping another feature that it already has. Barriers are basically another type of heal. So I wanted to show off. So this is a tank beast warrior. I feel like that this is probably the best build. So basically, it's like a backlash build for the warrior version, except instead of backlashing, you're going to be using this set right here. As you're going to notice, so I want you to keep in mind, so in a minute I'll swap back to my normal build, and I want you to see the difference in the numbers that it's able to do. So let's start off with the first attack. So that's actually a very weak barrier, 171. It's pretty low. Let's go again. 208. Maybe because I'm missing. Maybe I may be dependent on landed hits here. So 395. So just for a per turn defensive boost, even if the monster's penetrating through it, it's not too bad, just from that standpoint by itself. Let's see what we got here. Alright, so we got 585 barrier that time since all the hits landed. So it is a little bit dependent on your accuracy. Just some basic fighting to see if you can outlast the monster. We know water dragons are a little bit on the harder hitting side of monsters. So just straight attacking, 42% to water. In this case, you still needed the endurance to have enough hit points there. So this time, I'm going to then showcase sort of, here, let's get, probably gonna gamble a little bit too much on Prime Chaos over here. I still have the MP version of the guest here. I was too lazy to swap it in the upgrader. So 636 barrier. So there are some pretty strong barriers that can come if you're landing all your hits. Because this is once per turn and this guy's giving you a little bit of SP, you could do this, get a heal, and then you can go again, build some barrier. If it were able to penetrate, or even if you wanted to heal, you just do it again. So if you notice, we're getting 300s and 400s on the heals, and that's without like berserk stacking and stuff. There's been some folks that have shown you get like a lot higher if you're just doing berserk stacking. So as you can see, just the barrier by itself can be quite high. This monster's going to penetrate through my weakest to earth, probably. So alright, so as you can see, it may kill me right here, but as you can see, it just helps with a little bit of defense. but it doesn't make you invincible completely. With the triple compression, you got what? Wind, water, and energy was what it defends against. What you can do sometimes to really kind of increase your barriers pretty quickly is just get some celerity a few times. So let's see how many I have. 3 rounds. So I should be able to have some pretty decent sized barrier by going this route. So after 2, see, that's 989. So you get some barrier pretty quick. And then he already ate through my entire barrier there, despite 42% to water. This time it's 1162. All right, so if I needed to, because this guy's replenishing a little bit of SP, I think maybe Mosquito would be a better idea. You could just heal yourself a little bit every turn. And then, so now we're up to 1600. So the barrier builds pretty quickly. The info subs does show that the barrier takes a penalty with magic weapons, and then of course endurance helps with hit point healing. So you're getting some additional help from this specific build, like I've been saying. And then once you have like a large barrier, I think the best item in the entire set is the weapon. So as you can see, it says cost 353 SP or eat 356 worth of barrier if available instead of SP. So what ends up happening basically is you're going to eat barrier, and it's going to be one of the largest skill damages in the game for free, because it's using barrier to fuel it. And as you notice, my SP remain the same. And if I have the misc out, I'm still building more barrier. As you can see, it's not costing me any resources, it's just eating the barrier. So basically you do a few turns, you build a barrier, and then the weapon's quite strong. It's the best item in the set by far. Basically, you're getting a boost to healing through strength, a boost because you're boosting the barrier through strength, a boost to the barrier through endurance. Then you got basically 12.5% for these two items here, and then you're able to create a lot stronger barrier than the magic mode, and that's already enough barrier to make this free. And as you can see, it's decently strong. So what I'm going to do now is I'll come back and we will change builds, and then we'll see about what that looks like. Alright, so now I'm back, and I'm going to actually forgot to swap the weapon. I forgot that the weapon's not toggleable. One second. So I'm back as a Lucky Beast Mage, my normal build. Let's see here. And I want want you to see the difference in the barriers. And you're going to notice it's drastically reduced. Keep this shitty pet here. All right, so now we're only 240 barrier, and keep in mind that is the armor and the misc. 449. Now, one of the things that I didn't do, like I mentioned, I was a Beast Warrior build in the previous video before I swap builds here. Now I'm back to Lucky Beast Mage. So not all is lost in that the barriers are smaller, because I am using Creature 72 to gradually lower its offense. So even though the barriers are lower, like I said, not all is lost. I'm able to continue to lower this monster's damage. And so at some point the barrier will no longer, the monster's just not going to get through it anymore. But as you can see, you're not seeing a quick 900. I'll even do celerity here in a second. So we're only up to 790 something before the monster died after all his turns. Alright, so here, let's see here. But my guess, I could have probably swapped over to the SP upkeep just to show it a little bit. But you know, I'm using SP for some of these features, so I was hoping that the pet would actually replenish enough MP to give me upkeep with its regen effect, and it just wasn't able to do it. And so that just tells you how bad a job it's doing. Alright, so let's do 2 attacks here. So 512, so you're probably looking at, it may not be by half, but it might be close once you consider all the effects from the build change and the no endurance. So I do have up to 1,000 there finally with a 15% enemy damage. So that's how I would personally use this as a mage, is using Panic or Choke Guest. I would probably, like I said, I think using Mosquito is a little better. You could actually maybe just use Phase than my normal, you know, methodology there. It's just not going to give you the lucky strikes because you're trying to build barrier here. Now, one thing you can do, and I waited to show off the full defensive mode here because it's not going to make too much difference between the two builds on full defensive mode. We will need a little bit more SP because of the skill. So that basically is spell based, and then you get the 12.5 heal resistance. So as you can see, now we're at 25%. I'm just playing with fire here a little bit. I just want to show off just what it does here. 882 SP for this. That's insane. now we have 25% in the 6.25 and 6.25. And then what you can do, and you can do this no matter your build, obviously. And then just, if you get out of your full set, that other 12.5 leaves, and I don't think it comes back. But you should get a little bit better barrier now. It won't be crazy. It won't be like the other build. If you did this stuff with the other, the warrior build, you're gonna see a lot better results. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swap shield. If you'll notice that 25 went to 12.5. Let's just swap the shield back. It's back to 25. So I think that might have been a bug that they fixed, because I think I tested it earlier, if I remember correctly, way back when we first got this stuff. Now I will say there may be a couple other ways to really, as a mage, to build your barrier a little bit faster. The first way is going to be utilizing the Monocrystal Defender and just cast a spell. So you should get a barrier still with casting spells here and with the shield, just to kind of show. So we have, let's see, there's no barrier 8 through it. We should get a barrier here still, I believe. Yeah, 86. So it's not anything massive, but it's something. Let's see here. But what I would do is actually to get ahead of the game, and you can actually do this with the warrior build, so it's not even just for your mage build, but just, if you remember, you just hop in Necromancer and you'll get a pretty decent sized barrier from the get-go. I think if you have some Berserk stacking, like if you were to have Legion Fenrir, and maybe you were wielding Multi-Maul, which is going to change, and all those things, this barrier would be larger. And then here we go. Couple of these, and then we have 1100 barrier. And again, as you can see, this regen's not really doing much for me. So to me, just use like Mosquito, or just use Phase. So my barrier's up to 1700, but the reason being is now I have Panic just continually driving lower for the monster. So what I would do if I were using this set is I would just hop in Necromancer, then hop back out, and that'll give you a head start. So not all is lost with the lower barrier completely. And then with successive turns, Panic stacking, there you have that. So that was a small one, 280. 38 there. And I would just use celerity, and I would just use the same methods to replenish. And I think it's okay this is maybe a case scenario where maybe you don't have to use optical mist. You're still getting some decent replenishment with the Eating Panic and just the heal resist add-ons and the celerity. So as you can see, we're up to 900 barrier. And then the numbers will actually be different for the magic weapon. I think it was like 300 and something for 300 and something. This one's going to be 441 for 445 there. So just like any other magic skill, it'll just cost you more. And then so what we can do is then use this weapon. Staff really needs to just implement a misc. Maybe not the misc, but shield and weapon for sure should be down here always, even if it shows the art here, so that players can always have access to the clickable skill. So this is a void imbue. You're just going to be able to see most likely some pretty high damage. One of the hits didn't even land. It was basically free. So all in all, my take on the armor is basically, or the set anyway, I think the worst item by far is the pet. I think the design of it is terrible. I see no reason to use it. Maybe you can make the argument as a beast warrior if you just want to make sure that little bit of MP you need is replenished. But even then, it's not very good. I think the next item in line, let's see, it's probably, I'm going to have to say the armor's the next worst, only because the design of it is catered a little bit towards a specific build. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I much prefer more universal appeal. As you noticed, basically the tank warrior is able to stack the barrier way faster while doing more damage. I kind of don't understand the design, because they should have just made it somewhere in the middle. Maybe a little less for warriors, a little more for the mages, just to even that out. The full defensive mode, I don't really see too much of the point. You're spending an inordinate amount of SP for permanent heal resist, and the permanent heal resist is not very much. Some people think it's like the most fantastic thing on the planet for this game. 12.5 a couple of times. That's like 25 points. More SP a turn regen. That's not, in a game where you're able to kill monsters if you really want to in 1, 2, 3 turns, that's not going to do a whole hell of a lot, to be honest with you. Like what's been said before, I think the full defensive mode is, you can largely ignore it, to be perfectly honest with you. The full offensive mode is the mode to be in, just to constantly build barrier. So I think the armor is maybe the next worst. Then I would say that the shield would be, actually I'm going to go with the shield the next worst, then the armor. I actually didn't showcase. So the shield was doing 3 and 400. Let's see here. Was doing 3 and 400 with the Tank Warrior. As you can see, it's only 109. So, like I said, everything's catered towards the Tank Warrior build. So then I would say, so worst is the pet, next is the shield. I really feel like if you have endurance, then you have the hit points. There's less of a need to heal. So to me, it's kind of counter to reality. Especially if you're giving yourself barriers. Why would you need to heal? And then the armor's next. The armor's not really bad. I just feel like that. I think staff was worried about potential abuse for if the permanent heal resist was going to be too much, and that was the main driving point why I initially supported the set. I think the initial idea was up to 175%. I never thought that was going to be actually allowable, but I thought, well, if it's not going to be 175%, maybe 150 would be a doable amount. And then they just completely shit on it and made it only 12.5, with the second non-permanent have to be in the full set bonus 12.5. So I think some of the design was a blatant attempt to avoid some problems, which I understand that, but at the same time, I think it's a little too much. I don't personally see that amount of heal resistance being worthwhile. It's not really game changing, in my opinion. And then I think the misc is the second best item. There's not a misc in the game that does that, a barrier, basically like the Mana Defender Shield does, but for attacks, and it works for spells too. So I think that's pretty nice. And then far and away the best item in the set, it's the only item that I think I would say, at least for lucky beast mages, would be a worthy item to always use. And that's only if you're using like pets and guests to heal your MP and SP, and you can use a clickable skill. The damage is quite high. It's one of, if not the highest damaging clickable skill on a weapon, and you can actually do it for free as it eats barrier if you're able to build on the barrier. So it's very, very, very good. It's one of the best weapons in the game, potentially, if you're taking advantage of the mechanics. But that's it. Just wanted to kind of show it off finally. All in all, I think I'm a bit, not only am I disappointed because of the build specific min modding with it, but also the fact that they seemingly didn't realize that the majority support for the set in the top 50 donators was actually a different set. And like I mentioned before, some of the concerns I had with how staff would potentially severely curb the idea back, making it way less abusable. It's one of those concepts that obviously they don't want to make something that trivializes everything, but at the same time, you want things to be fun. I think they just kind of curbed it back a little bit too far. And then while I'm happy that Hollow announced that we'd be getting 2 sets with no real ETA on that, we all know that AQ time is basically a meme. And then sometimes that meme, like with this instance with the second donation set, that's not funny anymore. So I just kind of wish that there's little things like they advertise a new limited time shop with faces. That's a waste of time. Nobody gives a shit about faces. Maybe there'll be something else in there that wasn't mentioned. Fine. But I think that second set needs to be made like now. And we need to stop leaving a sour taste in the mouths of those that thought that they were potentially getting that stuff, and they didn't. I don't think the set is worth the 250,000 tokens that I donated. And the longer this goes along, the more I just probably wish that I just could delete the items and just get my tokens back. Hopefully they'll make the other set, do some due diligence, have a sense of urgency for once, and make everyone a bit happy, and we can all move on and maybe make some improvements for the next donation set, which not many is needed. It doesn't need to be wholesale changed, as some people think. They're wrong. But ultimately, there's your items. Nothing spectacular. A little bit build specific.